Shall we call the order at 12:35 on February 11th, 2025? We are dedicated to providing single gender classes, quality instruction, individualization, and family community involvement in order to ensure students' proficiency. Let's see who's here. We just had a roll call. Yes, you list. Teresa Melendez, Mary Merchant, Sue Stecky, Tim Starsky, Melinda Thompson, Karen Torrio, and Allison Hendrick Smith, and Miss Singer, and Katie Sanchez, Julia Weeks, Dan Hill, and Lori Bachman. Is that everybody?
Yes, we got it.
It's nice list. You know, we have any guests? May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I missed that because of the screen. Who said first?
Melinda and Jim.
Did Melinda said
Didn't
one,
say,
one, and
well, Carl and I both said second.
sorry, so I'm giving it to Melinda.
You win.
Next time, screen louder.
All right, does anybody have any corrections to the minutes from last month?
I saw a single word.
A single word?
Single word.
Did that, a
Yeah,
bad word that slipped in?
section 9, closed session. Says the board returned from open session. We actually returns to open session or from closed session. Last sentence.
The board moved into closed.
Nope.
The board returned some.
Returned from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Returned from.
Open session, but we returned from closed session.
And I need to make a note there that we forgot to vote, that we didn't do anything. That we usually vote at the end of this closed session that says, right, tell me if I'm wrong, Dan, that says we did not do anything other than what was indicated on the thing.
Right.
Right, usually we vote to affirm the statement of closure, but if we've made the statement of closure, that's really sufficient.
Okay.
So I think it's still fine, but kind of the best practice is for everyone to vote, so it's just on the record.
Okay, good. The minutes are fine.
Okay. Anything else? We have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we need to have the approval of the financial documents that are presented to us in the folder. Do we have any questions about the documents? Just, I mean, did we have them all and everybody was able to see them? We have a motion to approve the documents.
I move to approve that.
I second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All righty, let's. Do we have some discussion about them? Or do you want, I get a little confused by this, or do we move right onto the finance committee and we'll start? Yeah.
Well, the only comment that I would make on the financial documents is that they're fairly extensive. There's some big numbers in there. There's a lot of stuff included with it. And that's the result of exporting from one system and importing to another system. And it goes back to July. So like the PO report is pretty significant, that's in there. Big numbers and things like that, but moving from the system we've been on to X.
And we're totally
requirements.
there now? We're totally
Uh,
back from there? Or is there more gonna have to happen?
I would cautiously use totally. Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority is, yeah, completed. There still will be some cleanup and other, things that need to happen, but there shouldn't be anything to this extent, moving forward.
Great. This week, do we have some numbers?
We do. We currently have 204 kindergarten through fifth graders enrolled and 35 pre-K students enrolled. And for this current school year, we have 39 on our lottery list.
Oh, this current,
Correct.
how many are on the next?
It's right around 60 currently.
60?
60, yes.
Well, the kids that, plus the kids that are returning.
Is that like it seems like a lot at this point. Is that normal?
Yeah. It should probably be higher, I suppose.
Oh,
But we just sent out the intent to return, what, the due date is the 28th?
Yes, and then
So we'll have a better idea of what the openings are. And so we'll be doing a lottery.
and Lori, we're 204 is kind of low for us, right?
201 is our projection.
Oh, okay.
I
Where are our gaps?
classes you mean?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay, but that doesn't count in this,
Right.
that's a different grant. So kindergarten girls.
Kindergarten girls. I always just wonder because we have a lot of friends with young kids and
Kindergarten girls, kindergarten, even pre-K, we're 5 down in pre-K girls.
all
So,
girls.
yeah, we will take any pre-K, girl or any kinder girl that.
Okay, so the biggest gap right now is our youngest
It
girls.
is, and then, I guess in our. 1-2 is pretty, but then aesthetic goes to 3. That would have a little bit more to it.
Also on the girls' side or
Yes.
girls all?
It's probably like,
what's with the girls?
I'm not really sure. I think we've always had more boys on the lottery list than girls, and I think I'm not sure, but I think it charters in general have more boys than girls in, on the lottery. I don't know. It's just always been that way. I'm not really sure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Julie. Mr. Tim, do you want to talk us through quite a list here?
Well, why don't we start with the first 2 items? Katie, would you walk us through the bars?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen.
That has to be bigger. There.
Yeah, later. I just sent a request. I don't know, Julie, if you can give me access to share.
Yes. And Katie, where are you getting this from? Just so I can pull it up for the people that are here.
Yeah, if you want to pull it up, you have to open the financial document that's in the folder.
Okay.
There's quite a few bars tonight, so.
Right now.
That's it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then all the bars are hyperlinked, so.
I see them now. Thank you.
So, bar 18M, I'll just preface it. Most of these bars related to the audit, which we are going to talk about too. But now that the audit is closed and it's published, a lot of these bars related to that. So that's adjusting for cash in our actual budget for wherever we ended the year. When we do budget in April, a lot can change and happen before the end of June. And so a lot of these bars are just cash that we've had. It's nothing that's new. It's just now it's going to reflect our budget with PED. So that's what most of these bars are. There's quite a few, but the first one is 18M, and that's a maintenance bar. This is in Title One. This is not related to audit, but this is just an adjustment to our budget for how we're spending that grant. It's just moving $12,399 from one expense line to another. So no new money. That's just a maintenance bar. And then bar 19I is where we start with the audit adjustment bars. So that one is for SEG. It's our biggest one that we had. It's for $186,099. So that, again, this is just cash that wasn't budgeted for the new fiscal year. So that goes back into salaries and expenditures that we can put into our budget. So that's what that one is. And then bar 20I is also an increase bar. This one is in food services. And that is for cash for $15,177. Again, related to the audit. Bar 21D is a decrease bar. And this is in the universal free lunch, like state funded program. It's a decrease of $1,623. For the revenue there. So that's just reducing what we said we thought we were going to have in there. Bar 22I is an increase bar for the audit as well. This is for our Medicaid fund, and that's for $12,610. Bar 23I is an increase bar for the audit for our HB 33 fund for $10,527. Bar 24 is an increase bar, and that's for our SB 9 local fund. It's for $7,238 for the audit. Bar 25I is an increase bar, and this is for SB 9 state match funds, and that's for $8,140. And then bar 26, this is a maintenance bar in our SB 9 local fund. This is just, again, moving some expenditures from one line to another for we're actually using those. So moving the $20,000 from our lease to purchase into our buildings maintenance and repair line. Bar 27I, this is an increase bar. And this one is for accounting for $30 for rent that we've brought in for the year so far. And then the last bar is 28I. This is also an increased bar to our SEG of $340. And this is from a private contribution or donation that we received so far this year. Does anybody have any questions about any of those bars for tonight?
I just have a quick question because I'm not sure I'm understanding. So when you say moving the money around is related to the audit, can you explain that a little bit? I mean, I know it's not anything that we did, but why does that happen after the audit?
So in April is when we have to turn in our budget for the next fiscal year. So
Okay.
we're making projections where we think we're going to end the fiscal year at, either with revenue or expenditures. So I definitely err on the side of caution and say, this is where we think we're going to be. Sometimes, especially for SCG, things will just happen in those last couple months, like either with staffing or maybe we were planning for an expense and it didn't actually happen. So that leaves us with more revenue than we projected that we would have. And that's okay, because the money's still there. It's just kind of locked. You can't use it and you can't reflect it in your budget until, February after the audit's released.
So if I understand what you're saying, we start with a budget in April. Then we have to meet with the auditor. So we really can't move stuff around until after the audit is complete. Is that what I'm understanding?
We can move things around, we can do maintenance bars and some of those things, but we technically like that cash isn't budgeted. So we can't spend that money. Like it's not in the PED world, they only see like this certain amount of money. So if we expended more than that, even though we actually have it, we couldn't do that because it's not reflected in the budget. So, I mean, the auditors can see all that, but yeah, it just kind of ties it up. So you want to try to get it as close as you can, or just kind of err on the side of caution. It's always better to have an increase later than lose a lot of money later if you're not very close to that. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah.
Anybody else have any questions about the bars? And I have a motion, please, to accept the bars as presented by Ms. Sanchez.
So moved.
And second. All in favor?
Hi.
Great. Thanks, Katie.
Would you like to walk us through the updated internal controls? I just saw one section in there down at the bottom.
Yes, yeah, and I made that into a PDF too in case that's easier. I know sometimes when you guys open it in Word, it's hard to find the track changes, but yeah, it's just on page 11 is where that change happened. In the audit this year, they talked about a lot of stuff that they wanted to see different for capital assets specifically, and that if you needed to put it in policy this year, you would get a finding for next year. Most of it aligns with what we're already doing. A capital asset is anything that has $5,000 or more, like a single item, and that has a life value too. So like furniture, Chromebooks, building improvements, those kind of things. When they rolled out some of the new GASB software stuff last year, some of that comes into play too. But the big thing that they're really going to audit and look at related to this too next year is doing bulk ordering and having to depreciate that in your depreciation schedule. So let's just say we bought a ton, let's just say we bought a ton of Chromebooks or laptops. And we have to have a way that we're going to depreciate those over a certain amount. So every school might look a little bit different. The guidelines that I've put in here, what a couple other schools are doing. So our policy will be if we do a bulk order of something and it exceeds $50,000, and it has a life that will be 3 years or more, then we'll list it on our depreciation schedule. The depreciation schedule, we have things on there like our building, HVAC improvements, and some of those things. Not everything that's a fixed asset goes on there. And I mean, well, a fixed asset that's 5,000 or more. So that's really what they're going to be looking at. Is because some of that bulk ordering, we don't do a ton of bulk ordering, but it's good to have in there it won't be long before we're going to need new Chromebooks and some of those things. So a lot of this is breaking down. We do have some GASB policies that we rolled out for our audit, over the last couple of years with some of that. And so some of that is put into year 2. So when the auditors look at our internal controls, it's all together. And how we depreciate things, which is, the depreciation schedule is something we'll talk about with our audit for this year too. But yeah, page 11, that's really where those updates are for. And that's to get ready for next year's audit. So I'm not sure if you guys have questions on any of that or anything too.
Do we need to vote on that, Dan? Yeah.
Yes,
Do we?
yes.
Yes.
We have a motion to accept the changes to the internal controls and procedures regarding the fixed assets. I so moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So before I turn it back over to Katie here, I would just like to say, I was pretty pleased with the school and the documents we presented to Moss Adams. I was really disappointed in the process going through with Moss Adams, a bunch of different things. If you read through this and read Katie's response, it is difficult for me coming from the private sector to understand how we wound up where we with this. But all in all, I think it was a good audit. And the single finding that we have, was really out of our control. So, Katie, you want to take it from there?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Tim. So we did receive one audit finding this year. The good news is it's a non-compliance audit finding, which is the lowest level that you can receive. But this is directly related to the depreciation schedule and accumulated depreciation. So we definitely had lots of conversations and fought over this audit finding. So what this stems from, their condition was that during testing of capital assets, they identified an accumulated depreciation adjustment in the amount of $2,186 that was being incorrectly presented in the financial statements. So Moss Adams' internal person found this plug of $2,186 on their internal spreadsheets. And this goes back to a couple fiscal years ago when they had us insert this plug into our accumulated depreciation for some removal of assets that we had. And that was because of the way that our previous auditors had some of that accumulated depreciation. And they had us put that plug in there, and it's carried over these last few years, and it's never been an issue. When they had us insert that, every year I've met with our auditors one-on-one over this specific template and our depreciation schedule to make sure everything looks right. Because the first year that I took this over, one of our findings was related to these specific templates. And every year it's been fine. And they're like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. And we had a new person this year that found this internal plug and it created this issue. We have all the documentation showing that they were the ones that told us to do that and that we've met with them every year and it hasn't been an issue. But Sheila at Moss Adams would not budge and remove this finding. And no matter what we said about it. So we gave a response to that. I mean, it is published. And there's really just nothing that we can do about that. Besides it's going to be removed in the financials moving forward. But the heaviness of like where they're going with capital assets just continues to grow with that. And so I think that's how some of this came out too, which, preparing for next year, some of those capital assets will be combed through even more. So, we've been doing everything that we should be doing. And so we do have to give a corrective action plan, which is one of the items on for tonight too. We don't have to vote on that, but it's what we turned into them. And APS was definitely in the loop and aware of all of this. And because there's nothing really that we needed to change in what we're doing in those conversations and documentation, because I've learned to keep everything that, is sent or said related to this. So it's unfortunate we got one. I mean, but it is the lowest one. So that's good news. And hopefully some people read our response too, because we definitely, explain it pretty well, I think, of what the real issue was. So, and then after those first couple pages in the audited financials, after that finding, it's the rest of the massive document for our audited financials for the year. So hopefully I don't know if anybody has any questions about the finding or maybe even the financials or anything around that too.
Island audience.
Well, so just a little bit more from that, the call with Moss Adams when we were doing our exit interview. Like I said, I was really unhappy. And with their responsiveness, with how they treated us and the whole thing. So I wound up writing a letter to the superintendent and to the entire board of APS. and had no expectation of a response, but I got a beautiful response from their chief financial officer. And in the thing, I said, you know, I'm not looking for you to make a change here. I want you to know how your agents are treating, you know, the volunteers who are supporting your mission. And like I say, the response was great. I don't know if she'll follow through on what she said she was going to do, but she said that she would have a conversation with them and build some of this feedback into the next RFP for one of their, you know, for their next auditor. So I think it's this year that it's up.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's this year. And, I know that we're not the only school that have had some of these almost identical issues. And yes, thank you, Tim, for being a part of this and the last 2 years, because you've really been able to see and some of that dynamic. So, and writing that letter was great. So, yeah, hopefully it'll be a different auditor. Every auditor has different weird quirks, but, yeah, definitely the relationship is not professional. And I have a voicemail from Sheila saying that they don't audit every single number every year and it's not their job to do that. And so, that's concerning too when, we've had these financials for the past few years and we haven't had issues. So hopefully, yeah, it's supposed to go for our RFP this year. There could be a year extension to that contract that they have, but APS has told me that that's not something that they want to pursue, but it honestly will probably come down to what other companies go out for bid. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully in the next couple months we'll know.
I will also share that email exchange with all you guys. I'll forward it to you so you guys can read through that. And just not to beat a dead horse, but our audit, I think it was on our exit interview, I think was on a Wednesday. And Katie got the documents from them like at 9 o'clock Tuesday night. And, with no real chance to review them or anything. And a couple of things that I challenged them on, I'm like, well, this is 2021. And they're like, we're only dealing with your data from 2024. And I said, all right, well, Katie sent me our stuff. I don't see this number on any of this stuff. Well, that was in 2021. I'm like, hold on, you can't have it both ways. And so, it was.
They gave us 25 minutes.
Yeah, and then she was
And
like,
he practically left mid-sentence.
yeah, she's like, our time is up, if you want to talk about
He
it.
was going, and we're all like,
It was bad.
we was so. Sorry,
No, I'm
so. Anyway, I'm sorry. That was the past. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Um,
well,
yeah.
they're not green work.
No.
Recording in progress. Is there any?
There's nothing, no one else joined or anything.
Morning's coming. Motion to accept our audit.
Do we have to?
Do we have to?
We have to.
We do.
Well, what happens if we did?
I don't think you have to vote. You don't have to vote on it.
This is. You win, just is, yeah, I won.
Okay. And the
Corrective action plan, that was what we talked about on this meeting. We don't do action on it.
Okay.
So there's no action.
Correct. Okay, Tim, what else we haven't, we got, how about our discussion of federal funds?
So,
yeah.
yes, Melinda, I have a question about the, executive order, the presidential, order. So, I she asked what is our plan? I couldn't tell you until it actually happens. For this year, we've pretty much spent out most of our, I mean, the majority of our funds. I can tell you that, the total amount, for this fiscal year that we get in federal funds, which includes food services, that's the big one. Title I, Title II, Title III, and special ed, which is ID and E. And then we have, Medicaid, which isn't included in this total, because that's kind of like we get that in, there isn't really like a budget amount, but it would be anywhere from like 8 to 20,000. In addition to this total, so the total is about it's around 250,000.
Wasn't there some piece of keeping the special ed that it was somehow,
So, I think that, so Dan's gonna talk about that, like the most current, like, state of the order. I don't, it's not clear to me what was cut out. He might have a better, idea of that. But I think you're thinking larger questions like which plan? I mean, this would have,
kind of what are we responsible for, mostly primarily for the kids in the school.
Yep.
But as a board, what do we have to do to get
more money.
Well,
I don't know.
But
yeah,
if we had to, but came down to, I guess just thinking about, it's a horrible thought.
It is.
Sorry. Elsie.
oh, no,
But, what do we have to plan for if we knew, if we had a nice organized cutting of money, like, okay, they're cutting this much right now, that would be great, but you never know from hour to hour.
No,
really.
right,
So
correct.
it's impossible. It really and truly impossible. Just so would we get a heads up on it? Is there anything we can help with?
I
What
would
we have to
definitely, I would definitely keep in the loop. I
Mhm.
think that we wouldn't be the only ones affected.
Right.
Our school would not look the same if we didn't have this money. It's not, I mean, it's only a small percentage of our budget, but it pays for EAs.
Mhm.
Which means if I didn't have that EA, I couldn't have that many kids in the class or they really couldn't function. And so, this would have to somehow fit into our operating money. Some of it could, and so at whatever moment in time is gonna have to be when we decide, like what to do. So, but I will keep you posted, and then, I'll let you down if there's anything you wanna add on, like. I know that there was a court order that, said that there was, this wasn't gonna go forward right now. I don't know if you know anything else.
Yeah, so the trying to organize my thoughts a little bit, but the procedural aspect of all of this is the last year the governor wanted the legislature to pass a bill codifying the calendar changes, and the legislature said no, thank you. And so then the governor's directed her cabinet secretary, who that might have been like 2 cabinet secretaries ago or 3.
So this is the next agenda item, so.
Oh, wait. Am I going back to the other one?
Right, so I'm gonna go back to the federal funds, like,
Oh,
in the
my
executive,
brain was on calendar, sorry.
yeah, we're going there too, yeah,
Well, so bookmark that.
yes.
The federal funds, none of us know what's gonna happen. Like, it's, I mean, I wake up in like a cold sweat most mornings looking at the news. So, um, I don't know, Lori, if there's something specific that you want me to comment on, but
No,
it's
the court order that said something about, until we got more detail, this was fleshed out more, that the federal
right.
funds are not frozen, and that's the latest that I know. We're really not getting a lot from the state, it's just like, well, we'll tell you when we have more information.
Mhm.
We're keep getting those messages, so there's not really anything, specific right now, and I didn't know if you knew something different.
That order, though, my understanding was that initially there weren't cuts to education specifically, and that was just cuts to other federal funds that was enjoined by that court.
Okay,
I know today there was an announcement that there were some contracts, well, a lot of contracts from US Department of Ed that were canceled, but those all appear to be related to research, and so they weren't like direct grants to states. But my understanding, Lori, is that I guess whatever the executive is doing at the federal level, they've turned their attention to the US Department of Ed right now. And so I think we're going to have to monitor it closely. But so far, I'm not aware of any direct cuts to educational funding that would go through to the states and schools. I think they announced like $900 million of contracts that were canceled, and those were all like research-based programs that they weren't like title grants or something that would flow through to us. Um, what I've heard, like off the record from the legislature is that they have contingencies in place to try to make up for shortfalls in funding if the federal government were to cut all of those funds. But I mean, the amount of federal dollars we receive in education is pretty high. And so I'm not sure how the state would be able to make up the difference if it all went away. But that's the talk I've been hearing, is that they're not just kind of taking it lying down, so to speak, and they're trying to come up with plans if the state got a reduction in federal funds. Because all the federal funds, well, most of the federal funds flow through the state then to us. I don't know, Katie, if you have anything to add on that also, but I think right now it's more of a monitor situation.
Yeah, I agree. That's like what I've heard too. Just monitoring and waiting, and seeing and see what happens. But hopefully not major fund like cuts to those funds, but yeah.
I was laughing because I got an alert Trump hiring someone who disagreed with his funding cuts. While we were having this discussion. And we got, I mean, where I am, I'm a lower tier sub and it's under the Department of Energy, and I know we're scrambling because we're getting blowdowns from DOE to the prime contractors. And they were at that point trying to make sure that all hiring and promotions were, all the wording in there was that it's merit based. There's nothing to do with DEI. So they're getting the prime contractor that's helping the DOE website, for instance, is getting all of these conflicting questions, and nobody at DOE seems to know what's going on. So you can just envision, because when I heard Medicaid, it was, I know we have Medicaid that we get from them. So that was the first concern. And if it's anything, like Dan was saying, that sounds absolutely on track, because it seems like the whole point of this trick is to cause utter chaos. Well, what's going on, just so they confuse everybody. What else?
Now it looks like we're
doing anything?
talking about school days.
Yeah, so, there was a rule and that went away, so I guess the question is what comes next? But, go ahead, Dan, about the 180-day.
Yeah, I can jump back into that one. For some reason, my mind was just on that. I was all excited to talk about it. I will, before I talk about that, I just put in the chat, Ed Week is like educational magazine, basically. But an article from today about the cuts I was talking about, if people are interested. So yes, legislature last year rejected the governor's proposal to codify changes to the calendar. So she did it through rulemaking, without getting too deep into, like a law school lesson. Agencies are only allowed to promulgate rules if they have the authority to do so. And then there was a challenge by the Superintendent's Association as well as some charter schools saying that rule exceeded the authority of the department. And that's where an injunction was entered against the department on that rule. And so the rule is not valid, and not, I would say, the law as of right now because of that injunction. Um, the legislature's in session right now, and so it's, my understanding is there's not actually a calendar bill with those provisions up. There's always some, proposals and stuff to tweak things, but nothing, I think, that I've seen at least on that 180-day rule, basically. And so as it stands right now, the court has enjoined the rule, it's not valid, but we're, approaching budget season, and it's unclear kind of how PED is gonna react to that. And so whether they're gonna just try to reject budgets again and there'll be another court fight, or whether, they'll maybe behave appropriately and not, try to hold us to a rule that's not enforceable. So I don't know, Lori, if you want me to add any more context there, but the operating, what we've been operating under is the previous version of the rule. And so that's where, there's more autonomy for charter schools and other public schools. One of the big points of contention with the proposed rule that was enjoined was around 4-day weeks as well. And so it essentially made it impossible for schools to have 4-day weeks. And so that was, stopped. So I don't know, I'll stop there and see if there's questions.
For us, though, they're funding, like, here's where your funding starts. And also, so there's a question for me, specifically for our school. We had those extra 5 weeks of K-5 plus that was a separate grant. Then all of a sudden we had to we had to keep those days at a totally different funding rate. And so the funding is like way out here, whereas with the K-5 plus, we got funded for every single one of those days. So that's my biggest question about when this rule goes away, like where's funding lay in that 180 day? And then if there is new legislation proposed, we definitely want to get input on that. I did get a message this afternoon from the coalition that said they are trying to push for PED and the governor's office to see what's this legislation is it coming, can we have input on it? So if there's anything that I still have all my notes. We did meet with LFC on our calendar before it went into effect and how it impacted us financially. So we're kind of like stuck with this calendar, no matter kind of what happens, especially if the funding is, at a certain point, because we need that funding for our teachers if we're stuck in this thing. Otherwise, it'd have to be a conversation with staff, like, do you want shorter week and then your contract's going to be different? And we've kept it so that you can see what the extra day pay is. We kept that as a stipend and not as like their salary, so that we can talk through that a little bit easier, so you can see the differences.
So we have 180 this year without the 5 extra weeks or whatever for the K-5 that we used to have in July. Because that was separately funded.
It's actually more. It's like 192, right?
Yeah, 191.
So would that be, I mean, not that you want to go down, but would that be potentially part of?
It would have to be like, I gotta keep my teachers too, so I don't know what they're in their minds. And so I kind of like prepped them a little bit this week for that. So, we might be having another year where we have like 3 or 4 meetings with staff like we did when we first put that calendar in place, because we gave them whatever choice we had, we wanted to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And include them in it. So, we'll have to see what. So yes, I mean, it's all a possibility. We don't know. So.
And what is best case scenario for you at this point?
That we're funded. We go back to when we started this mess.
Good.
And we say, this is what the calendar looked like. If you're over that, that's where you need to be funded. If you're over an hours, I feel like it makes more sense. And Katie and I talk about this a lot. it makes more sense to fund on hours, and then if you're gonna have you gotta have this many days, that's also a different conversation, fine, okay, but let's like really fund it. Cause we lost a lot of money, we lost a third of what we, in that grant, and we're funded 1/3 of the amount that we were not. Funded. So every year it's like, oh yeah, we increased spending in education, but then they find there are ways that you're really not funding it. So, I mean, we made it, and it's kind of like the culture here, longer school year, but, so, I don't know, it's hard to tell.
Boy, it's gonna be a mess.
So, and that's it. Do you guys have any questions at all about that?
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's everything. Under budget and finance, how about, do we have anything?
Well, we met last month, and what is it, April, our next meeting, Katie?
Yep, yeah, it'll be in April.
We set up for the next audit.
Now, and they publicized everything now,
Yes,
everything.
so we can talk.
Okay. Academic committee, Karen.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Oh, so sorry. I'm trying to do two things at once and it's not going well in my life. Lori, could you give us the data, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, there are a couple of documents, or there's 3 in there, I think there's 3, there's a spring 90-day plan. That is just updated, and I already gave you guys a little bit of a summary of what we were doing. We just changed what we were doing from the fall. The only new thing in here is our action steps. So just so you know, these are our performance targets, and where we want to be in each grade. The only new thing, if you scroll down a little bit to the, keep going, that's all old stuff from the beginning of the year. It's just up a little bit, just these critical actions.
Oh, the critical.
Yeah, and so that's all that's new, but I really want you to see, and it's based on the conversation with leadership team and staff, that we came up with these next steps, and so, let me know if you have questions on that, but I just want to give you like.
What is race?
It's a format, for how you respond to writing.
Oh,
I think in one of the documents I put,
okay, so
it's like a
Pretty.
state, and I forget I used to, I knew it like 10 minutes from now. Yeah, it's not for your respond to writing.
Yeah.
In math and any
so
subject.
it's curriculum, right?
Yes, it's strategy related, yes. So, I won't go over that in detail, but I want you to see Julia, there's the academic performance and goals, I think. If you look at that real quick, it's in the folder, it should be.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's in the folder.
Different document, okay.
Yes, okay. So this is the boring thing, it doesn't have grass in it, but it does describe everything. This is kind of like my, where I draw everything from, for any audience that I have about, our data and where we are. So this outlines our goals. We have the mission specific goals, which is 85% growth on social emotional, be less 10% or less between genders and the academic plan ones, they change like every year based on what our data looks like, and they're more fluid. The mission specific stays for the 5 years of our charter, unless we update them a big place. So the academic plan, that's kind of like more like site related, like in year related. So we want 85% of students to grow on our measures. And then there's some proficiency targets. So if you scroll down a little bit, there we go. So the yellow, our performance come up a little bit where the yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, so here's kind of like where we are right now. The snapshot in words where we are. Not math. 86% growth, 91%, that's great. 80% under ELA for map reading. Language usage 82 and eye station 86. So not as much growth as we'd like to see there. And then the yellow is our, those will be measured at the end of the year. Those are our summative targets, but that's why we want to have those at the forefront, because we want to look at where our efficiency is now and see how we're going to get there. So that's just a bird's eye snapshot of that, and then we can look at the graphs. And so what you're looking at here is beginning of year versus end of year efficiency. The dark is the beginning, the light is the end.
End of the year?
Middle.
The middle, I'm sorry, middle.
Okay, so in that first one, it went down.
We have lots, so we have some concerns.
Did you have a lot of turnover, different students coming in? or-
We did have somewhat, but we have that every year. And I don't think we've had any more this year than we have in the past.
Okay.
We do have more IPs than we did at the beginning of the year, but normally that is what happens. So that's why we really took a look at this with staff to see, and have them like look at specific action steps for their classrooms based on those kids who didn't grow or who actually went down.
Okay, now I need to ask one more question.
Yes.
All right, so I see Hispanic, Black, NAS, that's Native American.
Yep.
Was ECD,
Economically disadvantaged.
okay. Okay, and the EL.
English language.
Yeah. So is part of the discrepancy with the Native American students, you go down the population? I mean, from 62 to 13, that's. That in 67. Is there?
No, it's like,
Is there an error there? It's not an error. I'm sure you checked it 100 times.
I freaked out.
And what do you think that's valid?
I think that we have a lot of new staff.
Okay.
And we've had turnover in some of the grade levels where I feel like it's happened.
Okay.
It's fairly consistent right now. I'm hoping that we're gonna have some new sailing to my end. I think that some of the classrooms are a lot more well established now than they were when we did this.
Yeah,
Or
beginning,
leading
yeah.
up to that, yes. So, lots of new staff, lots of new staff.
So you think they came in, just because again, you can't not look at the Native American student.
Yeah.
Because that. So they came in pretty strong, it looks like, at the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
And you think that was a carryover from last year? Was it a lot of returning students?
We do have a lot of returning students, yes. Yeah, in that particular subgroup. Yeah.
It's a range of reading proficiency. There was not a big change in.
I really, without saying too much, I feel like it's staffing.
Okay.
And we've really done a lot to, and this is a lot with working on that. Also, I feel like we've gone down into this thought that maybe the testing environment wasn't the best either. Because of the newness of the teacher, because of maybe some structure issues in there. And so we really looked at this, like that with the teachers.
Are the teachers open to change?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, it was pretty sad. Discussions where I had to say that it's where we are right now, something weird, but we don't want to also say, oh, it's okay. We want to see where, yes. And so I had individual conversations with teachers before we kind of did it in a group, then afterwards, and then, because I want to make sure that our strong teachers who are making gains and are growing in their profession, don't feel like, it's something that they're doing wrong and that they're not going to. So, yeah, because this is not something that we've seen, in the last, I don't know, 3 years. We haven't seen this in years. So, I'm hoping that, all that is gonna, I was type here.
Wash out,
Yeah,
it's in the beginning of April, right? First beginning of April.
some of it is, yes. I think it's throughout.
Lang U is language usage.
Yes.
And that, okay, means that once they've learned English or how to make a sentence or whatever, that means that they can use it as
It's
well
the
as read.
application, yes. I'm I'm pretty happy about the progress we've made on that measure over the years.
Overall, it looks better.
Yeah, for sure.
You just look at boys and girls, it's oral in general.
Yeah, right.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an interesting thing.
It's really.
What did you say?
But this, but
The
the
oral
whole,
in general, the CCCS really at the very end.
the whole is still in this iStation reading.
So here's
It's still
another,
kind of scary.
yeah, here's another phenomenon. Yeah. We have had, the kids we've had, last year, partially and this year coming in, our lowest, kids are very low. They're very low. So,
Okay.
that's another challenge.
And it's that part of what's making up the additional IEPs. There are
Yes.
a lot of those kids on
Yeah.
IEPs.
Yes.
And the IEP are the special ed ones,
Mhm.
not the regular, like, other kids have, right?
Although our gifted kids are also IEPs, so it's, you know,
But
But
a little
that's-
bit
something
more
like more of them. Something is.
We have, but that is not include, I don't include that in this number. That would be, if we looked at that, it would be a separate number. But that is just simply students with disabilities, not
Okay.
gifted items. So. Anyway, some gaps there. And then
The green ones,
green is math, so the dark green is beginning, the light green is middle. So if you look at
this high and they come.
I know, so I will tell you that we also did some, it's like a sub analysis. So we have separate sheets so that the teachers don't even have to, the teachers know how to go in and sort their own data. We do that as a whole group. But we also provided them with certain, information on, especially this one where you see the student with disabilities.
Yeah.
35, that's kind of not really okay. So we went in and gave them a tool that they can use and see exactly who needs the help and who doesn't, and where we target.
And Laura's like EL on this one, that's 0, were there just not any kids that fit that criteria at the beginning?
No, that's there were, so we had 0 proficient men.
Wow.
Yes,
0 proficient?
yes.
Wow.
But
I guess that would make sense at the beginning.
Yeah.
Big job.
it went up.
Yeah, we should have added that, I mean, it is a big jump. And overall, again, it's an increase,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes. Yeah. So there's the other measure, which not too bad. We did have a drop there in.
Practically speaking, what's the difference between those two values? Yes.
iStation is like time is kind of like a game. NWA map really isn't. It's a little bit. And it really adjusts. iStation does too, but it really adjusts for where you are in the year or like what we can handle. So that's really different. And then this looks chaotic. So let me.
Yes, it does look chaotic, that's correct.
If you look at the all the way on the left, it's for community charter school, that's a total school population on all of the measures, iStation reading, math language usage, math reading, iStation math and math. So that cluster at the end is kind of what we're comparing everything else to. So it's just another view, and I think it's helpful for teachers to look at too. To kind of see where they fit in and where their students fit into the whole.
And would that based on beginning of the year, or is that averaging it all together?
This one is middle, I mean, just middle.
Oh, sorry, we.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's okay. It's a lot split out. And so, you want to compare any certain cluster of bars to that last one to see the differences. Yeah, you see it in a different view, this just shows so well. And then if you go down, this is our growth last school year. So this was another kind of a little bit of a area we want to pay attention to. If you look at those rates and you go down to the growth this year, and
Mhm.
it's lower. These are lower, so that's a conversation we had as well. It's,
And you think that's also
I mean, it's,
lead to stature.
we saw, I also these are low. Should see in, so.
So
I
they're
think-
coming in less prepared. Are we getting less students from qualified early education programs? I mean, like, are we seeing less early education on arrival?
I didn't notice less, than before. It might be, I mean, we've gotten, and I don't really know if this contributes to this or not, but getting a lot of homeschool kids who have never been to school at all. Or they're come from overseas and they were in school for a while, we have one or two like that. But I believe in general, like, we can blame it on COVID, I think that there's just a trend where parents are keeping their kids home a
Yeah.
lot more, and yes,
Because I mean, the benchmarks that are established in our high quality early education programs are there for a reason, and
Yes.
they seem to parlay directly into pre-K and kindergarten,
Yes.
right? But if you don't have those stepping stones, I'm just wondering.
it for sure is, yes, sure is.
The pre-K. Four. So, and what you're talking about, kids coming younger than.
Yeah, like potentially an early pre-K program, right? Because they have those in place. So like the early education program that I used to run, we started at 2.5. We would take them at 2.5. And then we ran through pre-K and then second kindergarten. But our 3-4s were also mandated. We were private, so we were ED, we were CYFD mandated. But those benchmarks were in place so that kids had goals starting at 3, right, that they were holding them to, and they were tracking those goals and portfolios that would move with them. And you just, my experience was the kids that came through those programs, by the time they got to pre-K, then we also had kids, because we had a New Mexico State pre-K program, that would just come in pre-K, right? Kind of like Lori's talking about, that were able to stay at home, or, had some sort of setup where they weren't going to school at 2, 3, 4, So by the time they entered at pre-K, they didn't have that same base,
So even the 4-year-olds are already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before, from just experience.
Right, because I think there was, at least pre-COVID, a really, I thought, nice shift in the direction of getting out of the mindset of childcare and getting into the mindset of early education, right? And Mexico was pushing that pretty hard. But I don't know, I've been out since 2018 now, 19.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been expansion, but I don't know how much of a positive impact that's having there, but expansion, and that's why we're seeing the decline. We had no problem with, we would always have that school.
Yeah.
Always. Now it's strong for us to stay at 35, because there's so many.
Because there's more programs.
Right down the street in your house rather than
Yeah,
across town.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that. So yeah, I'm sure that is definitely. Too. And so, anyway, we had a conversation with staff about that, and then I think.
That's it.
So, and again, that, MOI growth is just BOY's MOI. So, it's just different, and I wanted people to see that, and just to understand it, and see where they were. So, I mean, you know what, if you look at it and you didn't see anything else, let me look at the growth, 86%, 90, 80, 82, 86. That's not really bad, and our target is 85. But, we've got, I mean, it's not where we've been. So,
Right.
so anyway.
Thanks, Lori.
Yes.
Okay. We did all 3 up all 3. We did not meet this.
You have any meeting? I didn't see it on the.
Wait, is it now?
So we'll have.
You just want to tell us? A lot of it is, responding to, proposed legislation, I was pretty embarrassing. But, that, we've got, rebuilding stuff going on, the, cafeteria design, kids posting it for you, that looks great. We just, today was the first day we used it.
I just was so excited about the short door.
Yes, they're all so,
so
so
funny.
happy about it. And it's just like McDonald's. You know? Yes. Just like McDonald's, yeah. So that, and then, you know, a lot of, we're working a lot with Katie and Julia on the cleanup. We have a new, vendor for, advertising for the lottery. So hopefully that'll help us a little bit too. It's a Spanish radio station. And he's been very, yeah, so he's been really, very supportive, and, they're doing interviews with, some of our Spanish staff. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I'll bring some. And,
Yeah, I kind of, when I got that thing from Blooms about giving kids a sweatshirt. and
oh, yes.
Brings me on set, I went, oh my God, there must be a problem there. It must be, you know, like, we must need more kids.
Well, you know, I want to be at 209 because that's where we were in the first and second reporting period. So we're now at 205. So that was like the last stage to get kids for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's only for like 4 or 5 kids. It's not like 50.
Right, it's 5 kids. Yeah.
A lot of sweating going on. Yeah.
Even though we're still over our.
Is that your?
So I'll put that in there so.
And you're
I'm
going
sure you'll
well
go
with
back
your
and-
goal
Yeah.
of writing down your stuff
Yes.
about how we're gonna divide this up a bit. Yeah, okay. You know,
Thank you, Lori.
I don't want you to think about that.
Anything else from the committee?
No.
Ms. Richard?
No, I'm sorry.
Ms.
Yes,
Thompson, you want to talk about the draft?
Yeah. So you guys are good.
You. Was huge. Oh, jeez. I had kind of distracted out and was sitting there playing. It's okay, it's okay. And Karen looked at it and she made it a whole bunch of suggestions and go to report from your side. More confidence. Anyone that knows how to write emails? But of course, the idea of this got started was that we would have a manual or handbook, so that new members can use it when they first come in and they have it as a reference, and all of us can use it. You know, updated as we need. But I'm not going to read every single bullet point. But we picked the items. So, for instance, item 1, you know, the introduction and history of the Pearl Charter Community School, so that if a new member can come in and look at that and see that it could feel of the school if they were, and it would not take away from your orientation because people go back. Because I think that's technically more than that's one. So, and the idea was so that everybody would have this look through these bullet points, see if it seems to make sense, and give us some feedback before the next meeting, so we can start moving forward, you know, and building this. But I think we'll probably need, especially in the training, give us suggestions. And I do think it's a good thing to have the resources, like we would lean on people like Katie for finance, of course, trying to get resources. And you know, even though it took, I think, at least an hour to an hour and a half to do. For instance, Katie, but if we write some of this down, we want it might save you some time, and then we can look at it and go back and ask questions. So, the introduction in history, of course. The second one for board responsibilities, so we have a clearly defined what you're expected to do and why you're here. the members of the board, the backgrounds, because we thought, well, like when I came in and Karen said when she came in that I don't know what you did, how long you've been here, what kind of a resource you need or soon, Tim, and then when you can invite me. I know you said that things like that, but for you to understand how you can help me and help me out. Just to get a sense, but it would help, we thought some of our ideas where they have, the names, pictures, these maybe a little short blurb, a little quick, short resume about each of us. Teresa has huge financial background, as does Mary, correct?
No,
Oh, okay.
I didn't have the absolute background in nothing.
Nothing. She's excited. Yeah, you have nonprofit background, we do too. And then to include, a lot of this is on resources too, like the calendar, the meetings. What are the committee meetings would we attend, like maybe if I attend a education, academic, so I know what's going on there.
Keep that still down, Julia.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where she's at.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Number 5.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
Oh, I see.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, there has to be something with the introduction in the school, blah, 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 blah. But, everybody needs to be on Blooms and everybody needs an email, right?
Indeed, okay, so add that. Email
Yeah.
that to.
And access to the OneDrive.
Okay, email,
Yeah, emails this to both Karen and myself.
okay.
Everybody knows.
I just think that's real important. I get a lot of information from that Blooms. And you also get this stuff from Mr. Nunn about
The
the
articles.
the articles, weekly
Oh,
articles, yeah.
Oh, there's.
Oh, no, or does that come on the, it comes on the,
It comes on.
Yeah.
but anyway, it's, I think that way we know more what's going on at the school. I think it's important to know what happens,
So yes.
And for those of you who want to, we have some Facebook and
You have what?
Facebook and Instagram. And we post
What are
every
those?
day. And it really gives an
I said
idea.
one of those, sort of being serious.
It gives a lot of activity around school that you wouldn't get in Blooms and other places.
I'm sorry, Blooms is the more stipend.
Okay.
You never been.
I'm not appreciated, but I think it should be there as a, like, info.
To let it know that it's there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll get you connected.
Blooms still.
So,
Facebook.
Okay,
My phone.
So the other thing that we talked about was a cheat sheet of acronyms. I
that's-
think we should put in there as well. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of acronyms that go along with this.
Yeah, because we've got that under number 9. Oh, I
I don't
thought I'd give you a much bigger. I thought I'd sent that to you, Lisa.
No, this is the one that,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we did put that as number 9, Karen, so I'll get that to you.
It's on there now. Okay, I'm looking at something different.
It's on the most recent that I thought I had sent to Lori. But,
9 is
I think
acronym.
this is a really great idea. I mean, I think maybe this is the first year, and now I'm whatever. Whatever I am. I mean. That, I mean, it took me a really long time to figure this out. I mean, it was really. And everybody was welcoming and warm and helpful yeah, but I mean, it was. I mean, and I played in the nonprofit world for a million years, and this is not.
This is
You know,
a different world. Yeah.
So anyway, I just think this is a great endeavor.
thank you both for doing that.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, number 7 is training on the most recent one.
okay.
Like PED requires and what the committees are, and maybe have a mentor assigned. I think that's a really good idea that Karen had suggested. Have somebody that, Sue, what am I supposed to do now? So that's good.
Now, I understand.
I'll try to get that. I'll get the
No.
I with one of you two, we can make sure that we get it to everybody. Then we should receive.
Yeah,
I'll take-
on
I'll
the,
take
on the
that.
resources page, there's a page with everybody's at.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Email address.
It's a-
That resources.
However, I cannot no longer get to the resource.
So it may be
Now,
a different.
in.
We'll figure out.
Maybe Julie could have some.
Do I need to give a class?
You need to
right.
go-
You do.
You
Connect to
give
the
a
OneDrive.
minutes to the class when you sign people up for blooms and their emails.
I mean, we can
I'm
do
not
that.
kidding. I'm
I'm
not.
happy to sit down with you guys anytime.
Let's do it next, and we'll set a reminder, and we'll maybe send the invitation for anyone that wants to. Okay.
That's a good idea.
You have to bring your devices though.
All right, so we can move along.
Okay, thanks, Melinda.
Yeah.
That's great work.
Okay, I think we need to go into closed session.
We get,
So.
Discussion on
School as safe.
Oh,
yeah.
What is that now?
Maybe it's faster.
Yeah, isn't it? So.
Thank you. You need to need a class.
What's that?
You need to teach me.
Oh, I don't know much more than that.
Is that?
It's your one skills.
it is, like, you know what, year and. Yeah.
Well, we like-
It's not like, I mean, it's, I'm glad that I met. I did. Okay, so Dan, this one is just a real quick discussion on, schools as safe spaces.
Sorry, did we go into closed session or not?
No, we're not going into closed
Okay,
session. We have one
okay.
more, item, right?
Oh, we're not going.
Because we're still recording, so.
We are going into closed session. We have one more item before that.
Okay.
Rule and six and six. So, I haven't gotten a ton of concerns from families, a few, about I don't know if it was an executive order or what, that, the ICE agents or whatever can come into schools. That isn't accurate. And so, Dan, you want to just give like high level on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the context also was the, administration changed and there was a longstanding policy at Homeland Security to not go into schools. They were considered sensitive areas along with like churches and hospitals. The new administration said, we're going to get rid of that policy or rule. And so there's a lot of panic of like ICE is going to come into schools. I did a training on it for the public charter schools in New Mexico, and we kind of talked about it. But the bottom line is, if ICE or any law enforcement shows up at the school, they need a warrant in order to come in. So, schools just don't allow anyone from the public in, whether it's law enforcement or just Joe Schmo off the street. And so if law enforcement were to come, whether that's immigration officials or, the police, and they said we need to come in the school would ask them for their identification, ask them for any documentation they have, forward that to me, and then we'd make a determination whether they have a valid warrant in order to enter. I've drafted policies for some schools on this, particularly I would say high schools with, more that may be perceived to have more of an immigrant population, are concerned about it and wanted to have something to show their families. But it's not really something that a policy is like 100% necessary as long as the school is operating kind of in the guidelines I've given. The other thing that was a concern of is, would immigration officials ask for like student records to try to identify students who aren't citizens? And so FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which we could put in your list of acronyms, is one of the many educational acronyms, but the FERPA, prohibits us from disclosing student records without parental consent. And so we really wouldn't be able to disclose student records to like ICE without a subpoena or valid warrant either. Just as a matter of law, the Supreme Court ruled that, like I don't know, 40 years ago that we have to serve all students regardless of citizenship status. That's Plyler versus Doe is the name of the lawsuit. So, we don't care necessarily where our students come from as long as they reside within the state for a charter school and, they follow all of our enrollment processes, we serve them. So I don't know, Lori, if there's anything you want me to add, but that's, I think, the lay of the land.
So,
I think that's it, just.
so when they come here, you don't have to make that decision. You're gonna get the documents and send them to Dan. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, I'm not going to give them documents, because I don't have to.
No,
No, give them to
the
Dan.
warrant or whatever.
Oh, yes, sure, yes.
Yeah, so you are not responsible for deciding. And if we had a principal, the principal would be.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes, and so, I just wanted to let you know that, like Dan said, he drafted a policy, I'm gonna bring it to you next month. It's short, I'll send it to you so we'll talk about it and see what you think, and, we'll bring it to you next time, but that's what we're operating under. There's a lot of things, even AFT put something out that said, oh, ICE is allowed in schools, and it's not true, it's not true, so we're going with this point of view.
Okay.
That's how we're. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's it.
How's that, Dad? How's that?
With incoming registrations, don't students have to show a birth certificate and things like that?
Yeah, but that's not saying that they're
Doesn't have to say it's the
Right, it's
legally
their
here.
Document or, yeah.
It's for
immigration
great
status.
placement and reporting, like especially for pre-K.
It's
Mhm.
Okay.
make sure they're in the correct grade for reporting. That's all of it's used for.
And so we don't have to give them anything unless they have a warrant.
Yes,
Whatever.
yes.
But how does
Besides, we have Brad
how does that
Peterson.
play out if ICE shows up at the door? I mean,
They
Can't
can't
get
come
through the
in.
gate.
Yeah, we're not letting them in.
Think it doesn't. Or open the door out there and we're behind.
Right. So, your school is very secure. Most schools are very secure now, but you wouldn't let them in the door, or if, you could let them in and put them in the office and say, you need to wait here while we verify, your credentials, that sort of thing. But they don't, it's not a school building is not a public place per se. Like the members of the public can't just walk in. And so that would apply to them, to any other law enforcement. I mean, the obvious exception is, if there's like a shooting going on in the school, law enforcement's not going to wait to get a warrant. They're going to come in, but that's a different situation where there's actually a threat to life or something like that, or an active crime, violent crime going on. So I think the guidance is really clear that we don't have to let them in, that, they need an actual warrant from a judge, signed from a judge in New Mexico in order to enter. And we would kind of keep them at bay while we verify that, and likely turn them away if they don't have a warrant. And that's not a pro or anti law enforcement or immigration status. That's just, we're a school. Our job is to educate kids. We don't really need the distraction of that sort of stuff going on during the day.
Great. Thanks,
Dan,
Dan.
what happens if they refuse to leave?
Well, I mean, let's hope that never happens, but um, uh, you are an APS charter, so we could call APS police department as well, or local, the Albuquerque Police Department. I mean, I had a school ask about this, and I was like, look, they have guns, and if they're going to come in, they're going to come in. We can't, I'm not going to say we should, risk our lives or something preventing them from coming in the building if they're just gonna violate the law. But we would file, appropriate lawsuits after that. And I don't, at least what I've seen so far, I don't really think that's going to be the case. And I really don't foresee a lot of immigration activities happening at schools, particularly elementary schools. It's just not a good use of their time. It's the politics and optics of it are really bad. I mean, what are you going to come into an elementary school and ask kids if they're citizens? Like, they don't have IDs. They don't even know what it is to be a citizen, probably. it's really not the place where I think we're gonna see that enforcement activity. But we want to be prepared and have staff understand the kind of roles and responsibilities, so it's not, I would say more, it's not a something that we're worried about. So we just all understand what our roles are and that, this isn't something we need to be overly concerned about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. As I said before, the next meeting is. Yeah, but I'm sorry. Just gonna just announce that it's next month at 5:30, that was 11. We are gonna go into closed session. Consideration of approval for CCCS governing council to move into closed session pursuant NMSA 1978, section 10-15 1H7 to discuss subject to the attorney-client privilege matters pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which the governing council is or may become a participant. So we'll go in.
Do you get a motion? So
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay, so
and
we're coming in a closed session. Nothing was discussed that wasn't on the agenda, and no action has been taken. Yeah. Good. We are adjourned at 7:15.
Lori, yes, is there anything I can do for you to expand?
Yes, next week, next month.
Thank you.
no, I already taken.
I'm your support person.